My name is Andrew Young. You may recognize me from the internet. I love my life, my cats, my job, and my community. I'm taking up your time today because on this journey of life, I've met wonderful people who make our city better, and I want you to meet them too. This is Andrew Young's Fantastic Talks with Remarkable People. Finance, philanthropy, family legacy. These are a few words that describes this episode's guest. She has quietly bridged the gap between social enterprise and philanthropic lending, and is way past the verge of greatness. Today I get to sit down with Lina Bowden. Lina, every time I mention your name to somebody, they smile instantly. You've had such an amazing impact on the community, and during my research I kept noticing the term social finance. Historically, not-for-profit has been on one end of the spectrum, and social finance has been on the other side of the spectrum. How have you been able to bring these two things together?
Well, first of all, I've not been doing it alone necessarily. I probably have been the lead champion for social finance in the London community, but there are a lot of people and organizations from diverse sectors that have been playing a role in how we've been able to move social finance forward. So it really does start with looking at how do we create a strong and resilient and vibrant community, and then looking at how we can do that by using social innovation or trying things differently. So yes, there are nonprofits and charities, but what we're seeing now is there's an opportunity for any type of organization, be they nonprofits, charities, for-profits, co-ops, all kinds of formation in terms of corporate structure. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people and organizations that are really trying to move that needle. And so social finance comes in when an organization has a revenue generation model. Okay. That allows them to create change and to affect the community through some kind of a revenue generation machine. And that's where social finance fits in, because that's when you're able to provide access to capital and engage investors, not only to find a financial return, but to add a social return to their investment as well.
That's wonderful. You've had such a great impact on many different lines of philanthropy in the city. You've also been involved in a number of organizations such as Pillar, London Community Foundation, the Ontario Social Economy Roundtable, and Goodwill. Mm-hmm. Most of these organizations have been focusing on impact loans and financing. Why have you chosen these organizations, and why have you concentrated on the finance side of philanthropy and community?
Well, that's pretty easy for me because that is my background. So I had a 30-year career in financial services, primarily working in the investment world, working with the London Life Insurance Company, and then with an investment company that I was a partner in, Highstreet Asset Management, and then later on with AGF. So I have a background in the mainstream investment finance world. And in 2010, I made the decision to leave that world to go back to school and study community development. And I was really very interested in the things I was learning about how finance can really change the game for communities by enabling more capital to be available to create community change.
Okay. Well, this is a perfect lead to my next question, which is actually about VERGE. So VERGE Capital is an organization in London that was founded how many years ago, Lina?
Probably around 2012 when we first started doing the work. It used to be called Social Finance London as a collaborative. And as I said, there were lots of players involved with that, including Libro, Sister St. Joseph's, London Community Foundation, and Pillar. And Goodwill was engaged as well with us in those early days, as is United Way. So we had a lot of community organizations that were looking to create change in community and looking at how can we tap into this resource of investment. So, and if I can explain sort of the difference between what I mean when we say social finance and philanthropy.
Absolutely.
Philanthropy kind of has its limits in terms of its walls. So, donations and grants and, even family philanthropy has, it's in a box. There's so many dollars that's available for giving. But what we also have access to is the investment world. So all of us individuals, foundations, and institutional investors are invested in the traditional markets. And in London, Ontario, there's $54 billion of investable assets that's out there and invested basically outside our community and sometimes outside of Canada, because our investment portfolios, we just basically give them to our financial people and say, go invest this for me. And these days, especially, people are investing less in Canada and more outside in the US and international markets. So social finance gives investors an avenue to invest in something that's local, something that's going to also create a community impact. So it's really just leveraging those extra dollars that are available for creating community.
That's amazing. I don't think anybody could explain it better than you. So thanks for being at the forefront of that. You've been championing this for a number of years, and I guess one of my questions that I have is, did VERGE Capital come up at a board meeting? Did it come up over coffee? Did it come up, while you're in the library talking to another community champion? How did you try and bridge the gap? How did that first originate?
Well, the first originating session, it was a half-day roundtable that we had at Grosvenor Lodge, and there were 35 individuals there from 25 different organizations, including the City of London and all of those other organizations that I've mentioned. And so we just had this kind of roundtable discussion of how can we start to leverage some of this investment money that's out there. And then we formed sort of a small collaborative team of those organizations, Sister St. Joseph's, LCF, Pillar, and Libro. And we started to just kind of meet regularly to start talking about what would a social finance framework look like. And we all agreed that we wanted to collaborate, that no one organization was going to own this, that we would collaborate and work together to make it happen. And then the lucky thing that happened was that the Ontario government decided that they were going to throw out some grants to organizations to build out community social finance frameworks. And so we applied for a grant to create a loan fund. And so we created the VERGE Startup Fund from that. And then we later also accessed another Ontario government grant that allowed us to start the VERGE Breakthrough Fund. And the VERGE Breakthrough Fund is a collective of 20 investors that have put their monies together to create a unit trust. And then that unit trust in turn invests in affordable housing, community real estate, and social enterprise. Okay. And so we raised $2.3 million from 20 investors and have actually just finished deploying those monies to investees.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on that, and thanks for all that you do. Speaking of community champion, in 2016, you were awarded the June Callwood Award for Outstanding Achievement. Can you just discuss that, what that award sort of means to you? Obviously, we're not, in the industry of philanthropy to get the awards, but yeah. Congratulations, and how did that feel when you received it?
Well, I think what was most important with that award, I remember for my award application, a lot of the community groups that I have been mentioning had written letters of testimonials of my impact on the community. And so it was a nice pause moment. Like, you're right, we don't go out there seeking awards. And, I really only want my actions to speak for me. I often don't typically talk about my work. Right. So it was very rewarding to know that I was being appreciated for the work that I had done. And in 2016, it was probably one of the peak years in terms of the work that I've been doing. So the work I've done for VERGE, so my work in social finance and even supporting social enterprise has all been volunteer. And so probably in the year 2016, I had worked 40 hours a week, but all volunteer. Okay. So I think it was nice to be recognized for the hard work and right. But also being very aware that it wasn't me that accomplished all these things. It was really our community. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to explain what you're doing out in the community. It means so much, and I hope other people watching really get inspired by this conversation. I want to thank you for joining me here, and thank you for joining me at the Wolf Performance Hall. Thank you for allowing us to host everybody today, especially Lina Bowden. Lina, thanks for everything that you do in the community, and thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.
My pleasure.